Well, once again, Nick manages to impress. I mean, I know we're only on episode 4, I think, but this show just takes its audience so seriously and takes its attention to medical details so seriously that it's honestly hard to really discredit it in any way when it comes to little details like that. And if it can get little details like that, if it can show that attention to detail, then then already it has my attention. And if you back that up with genuine drama with interesting characters, then all the better, which is what this show does. And also you have the fact that it's directed by Steven Soderbergh and written by some very talented writers. That helps too. But this episode was really juggling a few plot lines that are seemingly unrelated at this point. But despite that, they were fairly interesting in their own right. I mean, yeah, some characters are more interesting than others, but for the most part, I was never really bored by any of the plot lines here because first of all, Algernon, Dr. Edwards, he tried to have his all black branch of the Knickerbocker in the basement in the last episode. That didn't really work out. So this episode, he was really once again trying to assimilate into the upstairs staff, as it were, and having a really hard time with it. Um, and in addition, we actually saw him shopping and potentially finding something that could really serve to make a number of surgical procedures much easier, because he finds a vacuum cleaner, which primitive, yes, but is it really that much worse than pumping the thing to suck up the blood? If anything, it saves you energy in it, and it whatever. So there was that, and really it was this particular plot line that outlined the biggest weakness of the show, in my opinion, which is Dr. Gallinger. Dr. Gallinger is by far the weakest link of the show, and not because he's poorly acted or anything. I don't really think any of the performances are bad in this, but Dr. Gallinger, he is just written to be so boring. Um, and really, his constant animosity towards Dr. Edwards really has never progressed past I don't like you. There hasn't really been any deeper reason behind it. Um, I'm just going for the first example that pops into my head. The first season of Spartacus, Crixus, the character Crixus, did not like Spartacus, but the thing was, he had a character-based reason for not liking Spartacus, and a very understandable reason for not liking Spartacus, because Crixus, by his very nature, was a gladiator in one of the most traditional senses of the word. I mean, he loved the arena. He loved living in the ludus. He loved having this sense of brotherhood with the other gladiators. Um, to him, there was no greater form of glory. And Spartacus was basically the antithesis of that. Spartacus wanted nothing more than to buy the freedom of himself and his wife. I mean, he had no sense of brotherhood with his other gladiators apart from Varro. Um, so yeah, Crixus logically would not like Spartacus. However, Dr. Gallinger, despite the fact that yeah, Dr. Edwards did get the promotion that Gallinger wanted, Gallinger has never really shown any animosity toward Dr. Edwards that could not be explained through simple racism. Um, and I realize that may indeed be very historically accurate, but from a dramatic standpoint, you really got to come up with something better. Um, yeah, yeah, Dr. Gallinger, if he dies, I'm not gonna feel the least bit sad. In fact, if he dies, I actually think the show would be an improvement, especially given the much more interesting relationship. Um, between Edwards and Thackery, because Thackery doesn't particularly like him either. But at least Thackery knows the practical purposes that this guy can fulfill. I mean, at least Thackeray has acknowledged Edward's expertise on certain matters. I mean, at least he is not as openly confrontational as Gallinger, and like I said in the previous vlog, um, let's see what was it? Yeah, he doesn't really dislike Edwards through any personal sense of racism. It's just that to make the Knick, which is already a fairly unstable establishment in terms of its finances, blah blah blah, to make it a quote unquote pioneer in the realm of integrated hospital staff, um, on paper would not exactly help their fortune. So there's that. There's the business end of it. But like I said, the relationship between Edwards and Thackeray, even though it's in its early stages, is still far more interesting than the, I'm not even going to call it a rivalry between Gallinger. The strict hostility that Gallinger feels towards Edwards is just so boring. And so at times annoying. But you know what did work about this episode? Well, there was also the a few plot lines from last episode actually got pushed into the peripheral view, because Abby, Thackeray's former flame, she was in the middle of her operation, not like in the operating room, but her arm was part of her arm was attached to where her nose should be, and they were seeing how that would do before they did the whole lot before they put the whole nose together. So there was that. She only really showed up for one scene. And then there was the issue of the typhoid, which may or may not be a seasonal arc. Probably will. Yeah, that only got like one or two scenes. Really, the main plots were the Dr. Edwards trying to reintegrate into the upstairs staff. There was Sister Harriet and Cleary coming to an arrangement when it comes to the issue of abortion, which, we got some interesting insight into Sister Harriet, how she in her practices is a bit of a hypocrite, because she helps women with abortions, and Cleary subsequently finding out about this. I actually thought that was fairly interesting, and to see how their relationship progresses, especially now that Cleary has been giving a first-hand experience of a woman in desperate need of an abortion, or in desperate need of medical attention due to a self-inflicted abortion. Yeah, I'm actually more interested in these two characters than ever before, because prior to this they had just struck me as these meaningless side characters. And there's also the case of Birdie facing immense disapproval by his dad. That he was like, "Why do they call you Birdie? I mean, it's a sign of disrespect. They should call you Dr. Bertram." So yeah, there was a lot going on in this particular episode, but overall, I still think the Knick is a fairly strong show. Again, I was never really bored by any of these plot lines, and I can't really find too much wrong with it, aside from, or let me put it this way: there may be minor flaws, but I think the minor flaws can easily be overlooked. Really, the only glaring problem that it is more and more apparent as the show goes on is the character of Gallinger, his whole character. Which I think is by far the weakest element of the show, and please kill him off.